You ever walk away from a conversation replaying it in your head, thinking I should have said this, or why did I let them talk to me like that? Yeah, I've been there too. The truth is people don't stop disrespecting you because you finally explode. They stop when you stop allowing it. And that doesn't mean yelling louder. It means standing stronger. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, how to hold your ground without losing your cool, and how to make respect non-negotiable in your life from this moment on. You know, one of the hardest lessons I had to learn was this: not everyone deserves an explanation. That might sound cold at first, but it's actually one of the most freeing realizations you'll ever have. Because when you stop explaining yourself to people who have already made up their minds about you, you stop giving your peace away for free. Most of us were raised to think that respect comes from getting others to understand us. If we just explain better, talk longer, clarify harder, then maybe they'll finally get it. But the truth is, when someone disrespects you, they're not misunderstanding you. They're disregarding you. And that's a very different thing. Have you ever been in a conversation where you feel yourself talking in circles? You're trying to clear up a misunderstanding, but it's not working. You keep saying, no, that's not what I meant, but they're not listening. They're waiting for you to get tired so they can feel like they won. That's not communication. That's control. And the more you try to make them see your side, the more power you give them to pull you off balance. At some point, you've got to ask yourself, why am I trying so hard to explain something to someone who clearly doesn't care to understand it? When you notice that someone's not interested in clarity, stop talking. Let silence do what your words can't. Because silence says, I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to protect my peace. That shift from explaining to preserving changes everything about how people treat you. The moment you stop chasing understanding, you start commanding respect. And this doesn't mean you become rude or dismissive. It means you become selective. You realize your explanations are valuable and not everyone has earned them. When you stop giving detailed justifications to people who've already judged you, you regain your energy, your time, your confidence. It's not your job to translate your intentions to people committed to misunderstanding you. See, when people know they can make you explain yourself, every time they question you, they learn exactly where your buttons are. They learn how to keep you defensive, flustered, apologetic. But when you stay calm and say less, when you simply say, that's not accurate, and move on, you take that power back. You don't feed the conflict, you control it, because the person who stays composed always holds the higher ground. And here's the thing, some people will call that arrogance. They'll say, oh, you think you're better than everyone else now. No, it's not arrogance. It's self-respect. It's knowing you don't owe your emotional labor to people who twist your words or drain your energy. You can still be kind without over-explaining. You can still be understanding without being walked over. There's a quiet strength in knowing when to stop talking. The more confident you become, the less you explain. That's why truly grounded people are comfortable with misunderstandings. They can let someone think what they want because they know who they are. And that's a level of peace you only reach when you stop negotiating your worth through explanation. You realize you're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to live aligned with your values. Those who respect you will see it through your consistency, not your explanations. Let's be honest, it's uncomfortable at first. When you start holding your tongue instead of defending yourself, your body will almost itch to explain. You'll want to jump in, to correct, to fix the perception. But with practice, you'll learn to breathe through that silence. You'll remind yourself, I don't need to prove anything here. The moment passes and you realize the world didn't fall apart. They might still misinterpret you, but you didn't lose your peace trying to fix it. And that's power, quiet power. You start to move differently when you realize not everyone gets access to your reasoning. You stop arguing with people who only listen to reply. You stop writing essays to people who can't read your character. You start choosing your words like currency because they cost energy and you no longer spend them on what doesn't grow you. And here's the part that really changes the games when you stop explaining yourself to people who don't respect you. The right people start paying attention. Your calm becomes noticeable. Your silence becomes unsettling to those who once thrived on your reactions. They'll wonder why you don't argue anymore, why you don't rush to defend yourself. And in that moment, they'll realize something has shifted because respect doesn't come from demanding it. It comes from demonstrating you no longer need their approval to stand your ground. That's when disrespect loses its power. Because once you stop explaining yourself to people who've already decided who you are, they no longer control how you see yourself. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct is usually to react, to snap back, defend yourself, or prove that you won't be pushed around. It's human. But here's the problem. Reacting from emotion almost always gives them exactly what they want. Because disrespect isn't always about you. It's about control. It's about testing whether they can get under your skin, shift your mood, or throw you off balance. And if they can, they win. Not because they were right, but because they pulled you into their chaos. The real strength lies in learning to match an energy with boundaries, not emotion. That means you don't meet loudness with louder. You meet it with clarity. You don't meet attitude with attitude. You meet it with a boundary that says, that's not how I communicate. And if it continues, I won't engage. Calm isn't weakness. Calm is the highest form of power because when you stay calm, you stay in control of yourself. And that's something no one can take from you unless you give it away. Think about it. The person who loses their cool first loses their credibility. They might feel justified in the moment, but from the outside, they look like they're fighting for control, not holding it. The person who stays composed, the one who keeps their tone even, their words clear, their presence steady, that's the one everyone starts to listen to. You can't lead a situation if you're emotionally tangled in it. I've seen people try to win arguments by being louder, sharper, more aggressive. But the truth is, no one remembers what was said in the heat of disrespect. They remember who stayed grounded. They remember who didn't get pulled in. And that's what earns long-term respect, because calmness in a disrespectful moment communicates confidence. It says, you don't control me, I control me. And that's a message that cuts deeper than any comeback ever could. Now, I'm not saying you let people walk all over you. Staying calm doesn't mean staying quiet. It means responding instead of reacting. There's a difference. Reacting is emotional. It's automatic. It's raw. It's what happens when your pride feels threatened. Responding is intentional. It's measured. It's mature. It's what happens when your self-respect is intact. When someone disrespects you, they're inviting you into a lower version of yourself. Responding with boundaries means declining that invitation. And sometimes that boundary is a simple line like, I'm not going to have this conversation if you keep talking to me like that. You say it once, you say it calmly, and then you follow through. You don't have to over-explain it. You don't have to justify it, because the moment you do, you start negotiating your worth again, and that's not what we're doing here. There's something incredibly powerful about being unshakable when someone's trying to provoke you. You can watch them get frustrated because they can't get the reaction they're fishing for. They'll escalate, they'll try new angles, they'll poke harder, and still you won't bite. That's when they realize they don't have the same power over you anymore. You've changed the game. You've turned their disrespect into a mirror, showing them their own loss of control while you stand firm in yours. You have to understand, most people who disrespect you aren't looking for a real argument. They're looking for emotional leverage. They want to see if they can make you small, flustered, defensive. The moment you don't play that game, the power dynamic shifts. You become untouchable, not because you've out-yelled them, but because you've out-disciplined them. You've proven that their behavior doesn't dictate your behavior. And that's how you build self-respect that lasts. Calmness doesn't mean you're indifferent. It means you're strategic. It means you've learned that energy is currency and you're not spending yours recklessly. You start asking yourself before responding, is this worth my peace? And most of the time, it's not. That pause, that deep breath before you respond, that's your armor. That's what separates reaction from response. And here's the thing most people never realize: calmness can be intimidating. When someone expects a fight and you give them composure instead, it disarms them. It unsettles them because they can't manipulate what they can't move. You stop being predictable. You stop being easy to provoke. And you start being respected, not out of fear, but out of recognition that you're someone who doesn't operate on impulse. It takes practice. You won't nail it the first time. You'll slip up, get reactive, maybe even regret something you said. But every time you choose calm over chaos, you strengthen that muscle. You'll notice disrespect doesn't sting as hard. You'll start recognizing when someone's projecting instead of personalizing it. And before long, you'll realize you've changed, not because the world got nicer, but because you stopped letting its noise dictate your peace. That's how you teach people how to treat you, by how you treat yourself in moments of disrespect, not through words, not through yelling, but through unwavering composure backed by boundaries. Because once you learn to stay calm under fire, no one can touch your peace again. Most people think disrespect comes from others, but the truth is, it often starts with the silent deals we make with ourselves, the little ways we trade self-respect for approval. The times we say yes when everything in us wants to say no. The moments we shrink our opinions to avoid being judged. It's subtle, but that's where it begins. When your need to be liked outweighs your need to be respected, people can feel it, and the wrong ones will use it. We all want to be liked. It's human. But the need to be liked, that's a trap. Because the second you start chasing validation, you hand control to whoever's willing to withhold it. You start performing instead of living. You start editing yourself to fit rooms that don't even deserve you. And here's the thing people can sense when you need their approval. It's like blood in the water. The more you chase their acceptance, the more they pull it away. Not because they're always cruel, but because respect never comes from begging. It comes from balance. There's a huge difference between being kind and being a people pleaser. Kindness is strength. It's generosity without expectation. People pleasing is fear. It's compliance disguised as connection. When you're driven by the fear of disappointing others, you start compromising the small things, your time, your opinions, your energy. But little by little, those compromises add up. And soon you look in the mirror and realize you don't recognize the person staring back. You've become agreeable, likable, even admired, but at the cost of your own identity. The hardest part about detaching from the need to be liked is realizing how much of your life was built around it. You start seeing patterns, how you stayed in friendships that drained you because you didn't want to seem rude, how you tolerated disrespect at work because you didn't want to be labeled difficult, how you kept quiet in moments that mattered most because you didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable. But every time you choose their comfort over your integrity, you lose a little more of yourself. It takes courage to say, I'm okay if they don't like me. That's not arrogance. It's alignment. It's understanding that peace doesn't come from pleasing everyone. It comes from honoring yourself. And when you stop performing for approval, something incredible happens. You start to attract respect naturally. People sense that shift. They notice the quiet confidence in your boundaries. They realize they can't manipulate your emotions or guilt you into compliance anymore because your self-worth is no longer a group project. Now, detachment doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop seeking their permission to be yourself. It's a mindset shift from, I hope they like me, to, I hope we're compatible. See the difference? One is desperate for acceptance. The other stands in self-respect. When you operate from the second, you stop chasing people and start choosing them. You stop tolerating one-sided relationships because you realize your value doesn't need validation. It just needs recognition. And that's when you start walking differently. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. You stop softening your words to make others comfortable with your truth. You stop feeling guilty for prioritizing your own peace. And suddenly, people begin to treat you differently, not because you demanded respect, but because you embodied it. There will always be people who don't like you. Maybe they're intimidated by your calm. Maybe they're uncomfortable with your growth. Maybe they just don't align with your energy. That's fine. You don't have to fix that. You just have to stay grounded in who you are. When you detach from the need to be liked, you stop reacting to rejection as loss and start seeing it as protection. The universe has a funny way of removing people who benefit from your self-doubt the moment you start believing in yourself. You'll know you've grown when you can stand in a room full of people who misunderstand you and still feel no need to explain yourself. That's freedom. That's confidence. That's what real respect feels like. It's not loud or defensive. It's quiet, steady, and untouchable. And the more you live from that space, the less you'll attract disrespect in the first place. Because people who thrive on control and manipulation have no interest in someone they can't emotionally move. So stop trying to be liked by everyone. It's not your job. Your job is to be real, to be kind, and to be at peace with who you are when no one's clapping. Because the moment you stop needing their approval, you start owning your power. And that's the day no one can ever take your respect from you again. One of the most overlooked signs of self-respect is how much you choose to say or not say. You can tell a lot about a person's confidence by the way they handle silence. Most people think power comes from talking, from defending, from filling every quiet space with explanations. But real power, real control, it's in restraint. It's in your ability to speak less and mean more. Because when your words carry weight, you don't need to use many. Think about the last time someone disrespected you. Maybe they raised their voice. Maybe they said something slick to test your reaction. Most people rush to respond, to correct, to prove, to show they're not weak. But that's the trap. When you feel the need to defend yourself immediately, you hand them the steering wheel. You start reacting from emotion instead of intention. And the person who can make you react controls you. The one who pauses, thinks, and responds with precision, that's the one who commands respect. Silence isn't avoidance. It's composure. It's saying, I heard you, but I'm not giving you the reaction you're fishing for. There's a difference between being silent out of fear and being silent out of strength. The first one comes from insecurity. The second one comes from self-control. And when you master that second kind of silence, people start to pay attention when you finally do speak, because they know your words aren't noise, they're intention. In today's world, everyone's trying to outtalk each other. Everyone wants the last word, the final say, the mic drop moment. But here's the truth. The last word doesn't win the argument. Self-control does. When you speak calmly, clearly, and with purpose, you instantly stand out. You shift the energy. You make people stop and listen, not because you're louder, but because you're grounded. Your confidence is felt, not forced. Speaking less doesn't mean you suppress your truth. It means you deliver it with precision. You take time to think before you respond. You choose your words the same way you choose where to put your energy, carefully. And when you do that, your communication becomes sharp, clean, and respected. You don't need to convince anyone of your point of view. Your presence does most of the talking for you. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Imagine someone trying to provoke you. They're loud, sarcastic, maybe even cruel. You meet their energy with calm silence, maybe just a small look that says, you don't get access to me that easily. That silence, that pause, that's what makes them uncomfortable, because they realize you're not emotionally available for their disrespect anymore. They can't play their usual games because you're not showing up for them in the way they expect. It's not about being cold or detached. It's about being intentional. You don't waste words on people who aren't listening. You don't pour explanations into conversations where your value has already been dismissed. You start realizing that your energy, your words, your peace, they're valuable currency, and not everyone deserves to spend them. When you speak less, you give your words time to grow roots. People remember them. They stick. You become the kind of person who doesn't have to repeat themselves because your tone and your consistency already communicate everything that needs to be said. You don't have to say, respect me. You show it in the way you carry yourself, in the way you handle conflict, in the way you choose silence over unnecessary defense. There's a calm confidence that comes from no longer needing to fill every silence. You don't rush to fix misunderstandings. You don't chase closure in conversations that don't deserve your effort. You just let your actions speak louder. You let time and truth reveal what your words don't have to. And that's what makes you powerful. Not your ability to argue, but your ability to stay composed when others lose their balance. And let's be honest, silence can be uncomfortable, especially at first. We're used to equating quiet with weakness, thinking that if we don't respond, we'll look passive. But the more grounded you become, the more you realize silence isn't surrender. It's a statement. It says, I'm not here to prove my worth in this conversation. And that's when the dynamic changes. You start to notice that the people who once tried to talk over you suddenly start watching what they say around you, because silence demands accountability. it makes others confront themselves. So the next time you feel that urge to jump in to defend, to explain, pause, breathe, ask yourself if your response is to serve peace or to prove a point. Because when you start speaking with that kind of intention, your words hit different. They carry your boundaries, your values, your calm authority. And the less you say, the more they listen. When your silence has purpose and your words have weight, no one can use them against you. Here's the thing about boundaries. Everyone loves to talk about setting them, but very few actually enforce them. And that's where most people lose their respect. A boundary without a consequence isn't a boundary, it's a wish. You can tell people what your limits are all day long, but if nothing happens when they cross the line, they learn that your words are just noise. Respect doesn't come from saying, "Don't talk to me like that." It comes from calmly walking away when they do. The biggest mistake people make is thinking that enforcing boundaries means you have to be harsh, aggressive, or confrontational. You don't. You don't need to raise your voice to be firm. You don't need to prove a point to be powerful. Boundaries are not about control. They're about clarity. You're not trying to change someone else's behavior. You're deciding what you will and won't allow in your space. And once you make that decision, you stick to it, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. When you start enforcing your boundaries, it can feel uncomfortable at first. People will test you, especially the ones who benefited from the old you, the one who gave, who tolerated too much, who explained endlessly. They'll call you distant. They'll say you've changed. And they're right. You have. Because growth will always look like loss to the people who only loved you when you were easy to take advantage of. But enforcing consequences doesn't make you the bad guy. It makes you someone who finally realized that peace costs less than pleasing everyone. You can't keep teaching people that there are no consequences for disrespecting you. The longer you do, the more you condition them to believe you'll tolerate it. And it's not even their fault after a while. They're just responding to the boundaries you didn't uphold. But the moment you change that pattern, you send a new message. I don't argue about my worth. I enforce it. You start communicating through your behavior instead of your explanations.